Alright, so the new feature drops tomorrow, and I thought I'd just give some information to know about, like, before you, like, buy the crystals. And, this is gonna be, like, going over all the new feature characters, going over, like, their signature level importance, and of course, we're gonna be talking about 7-star characters. So yeah, like, a quick preface here. I cannot, like, control your account, really. I don't tell you what to buy, what not to buy. This is just, like, my advice on these characters and just, like, on this crystal. So just take what I say, like, as just an opinion, right? Like, on what my thoughts are on these champions and, like, what you do with these crystals, right? But yeah, now that that's, like, out of the way, let's just get started. So first, let's meet the characters, right? I'm not going to rank them or anything. I'm just going to go, like, in order from their release. Though I will say who I think is the best character in this feature crystal, but we'll get to that champion when the time comes. But first, we have Baron Zemo, and I think Baron Zemo is a very cool character. He's a bit, like, unique with his root mechanic and his cleanse. You can, like, do some really cheesy stuff with both of them combined. That, like, utility is getting nerfed, though, with, like, the rebalance, and so is his Zemo lock mechanic. But besides that, he still is pretty good for, like, some standard skill trope fights, like, Purify, evade counter. He's still decent for those matchups, and yeah, he's a pretty cool character overall. Also has high prestige value there, and he just has a pretty nice kit overall, I would say. So yeah, Zemo, pretty cool character. Definitely has some value, and he won't be like a miss if you pull him in this feature crystal. So yeah, now let's talk about Cassie Lang. Now, I think Cassie Lang is fantastic, man. She has great utility, her damage output is fine as well, but it's just like the miss mechanic and her like insanely good taunt that are just so insane, man. I think it just adds so much utility to the character. She has buff immunity, she has poison and shock immunity as well. She just has a lot going on for her, and she has some pretty consistent damage as well. So yeah, a very solid champion overall. I feel like she is one of the best pulls in this crystal. She just has so much going on for her, man. I feel like she's just a very powerful character. So yeah, I will be hunting her for sure. I cannot wait to like hopefully get her. Just a very like reliable and consistent character. So yeah, Cassie Lang, fantastic character. Now let's talk about who I think is the best pull in this feature crystal, Future Ant-Man. I think Future Ant-Man is absolutely crazy, man. He is so good. His damage output is fantastic. His utility is crazy. When he's awakened, oh my gosh, man, just like the things he does is absurd. He has consistent damage that's really easy to like get to and is very practical as well. He has insanely good power control, and his utility is just bonkers, man. He has pseudo bleed and incinerate immunity whenever he's awakened, and if he's awakened as well, he gets this safeguard mechanic that is just absolutely cracked, man. So basically, whenever he would take 10% of his maximum health as like a single source of damage, it gets capped. And when that cap like gets hit, he regens 5% of it back, not including the recovery mastery. So that is just like a massive regeneration, and you cap the damage as well. And this isn't just like for hits, right? It's for like things like Hurt Locker, Gallon's Harvest, just things like that, man. It just like is so good. And yeah, he's just a crazy good dual threat in Battlegrounds as well. He has some annoying like defensive mechanics, and he's just a very solid attacker as well. So yeah, I think Future Ant-Man is the best character in this crystal, and he is just a very like strong character. If you pull this guy, congrats, you won the crystal pretty much. Now, moving on with another tech character, we have Viv Vision, who is a very interesting character, but I feel like she'll be the most hated character in this crystal because if you don't like her rotation, you're just not going to like the character at all. Because she has a very like unique playstyle where she has this phase parry, and if you don't like that, then you're just going to like not like the character at all, to be honest. But if you do like that playstyle, then you're going to really enjoy her because she's a pretty solid character. She's a very like strong burst champion. She has some nice damage output in short matchups. She has some nice immunities. She has paralysis removal. She just has a nice kit for a tech character. But the thing is, in like high healthful matchups, if you don't like get them down within one burst cycle, there's a very punishing cooldown. So yeah, just be on the lookout for that. She's not like the best Act 8 character. If there's like nodes to help boost her attack rating, then she can be good for like Act 8 fights. But besides that, it won't be like as pretty as like other tech characters. But yeah, a very solid character overall, and I would love to pull Viv Vision, to be honest. And now we have probably my personal favorite besides Future Ant-Man in this crystal. Actually, no, I'd say Kate Bishop is my favorite overall, just because I love Hawkeye so much. So like having the a very similar character playstyle wise, it's just very fun. So yeah, I just love Kate Bishop, man. Her utility is great. She has some Tranquilize, she has a very solid Cold Snap, and her damage output is just fantastic. Her damage output is absolutely crazy, man. So yeah, a very solid damage dealer, a very like versatile character as well, and I think she's a very solid pool overall. So yeah, if you get this character, congrats, she's a very solid champion. A quick bonus, she also has access to tracking, which counters miss, and she also has access to unblockable, which is pretty dang cool. So yeah, just a very like versatile character and a very solid champion overall. Now, last but not least, we have Shocker, and Shocker is a very cool character, man. He has a very like simple playstyle. His like window of damage is just on the heavy attack, and it's a very satisfying time. he can be a bit complex if like you want to use him in places where like you wouldn't really think to use him, but besides that he's still a very simple character to play. He has a lot of damage output, he has some pretty nice utility. He's not like the most utility focused character, but he does have some like mechanics that are pretty nice. But yeah, just a very solid champion overall. He will be a like battlegrounds monster, man, because his damage output is very fast to access and he has just like a very quick ramp up. So yeah, a pretty solid character overall. If you like battlegrounds, then you're gonna love this character a ton. So now let's go over the signature level importance of these guys, right? Like, let's say you are on a budget for 6 stones, and like if you pull one of these characters, just like how much do you have to invest in them for them to be like, super good? So first up, Baron Zemo, and this guy, you just do not need any 6 at all. He is a very solid character, just unawakened. His awakened ability is pretty just like pointless. It just gives extra critical damage. And it's like, okay, it's just more damage on his basic attacks and his special attacks, because he doesn't even have crit bleed, he just has regular bleed. So it's just like, it's just extra damage, which is pretty cool, but not needed in the slightest. Now we have Cassie Lang, who has a kind of like better signature ability for sure than Baron Zemo. Basically, you get Power Steel at Sig 1, which is Power Steel immunity at Sig 1, which is like not too bad, but kind of niche. But then we have this part where you get extra Power Stings per signature level, and it stacks up to 10 extra Power Stings, which is like 33% more than like the usual, which is pretty dang good. It's a nice damage bonus for sure. Unawakened Cassie Lang is still a very solid character. Like you can still work with 30 power stings for sure. And the last part here makes her a pretty solid dual threat in like battlegrounds. It gives her a chance to evade. Whenever she evades, she puts a power sting on the opponent, and it's a pretty like nice power sting because it's just like it's extra damage. So yeah, a pretty solid signature ability. I wouldn't say she needs it at all. So like if you pull the character and you don't want to awaken her, that's completely fine. She doesn't need to be awakened at all. So now we have Future Ant-Man, who has a pretty crazy signature ability. So basically, you get Bleed, Incinerate, Pseudo Immunity because they suffer up to minus 90% duration, which is pretty good. And whenever one expires, you get a regeneration buff recovering some missing health, which is pretty good as well. But then we have the most important part, in my opinion, and what makes his signature ability just absolutely insane. So whenever he takes more than 10% of his maximum health and a single source of damage, it gets capped and he gets a regeneration buff, healing 5% of his maximum health. And that counts for things like Hurt Locker, Gallon's Harvest, things like that. It is just a crazy good signature ability. It lets him just like tank so much damage output, and also it just lets him be a very annoying defender in battlegrounds. So like Unawakened Future Ant-Man, still a very solid power controller and a solid damage dealer. Awakened Future Ant-Man, utility beast, and just a massive dual threat in battlegrounds, and just the best character in this crystal in my opinion. So yeah, his signature ability is a pretty dang important one. And now I have another important signature ability right here with Viv Vision. So Viv Vision, whenever she consumes solar energy and like is at 5 or above, she gets like extra burst of power, right? And that's pretty important because she can just spam SP once if you have like a decent signature level. I think even at like a low 6 she can still do it, but it's just extra power gain, which is pretty useful for her. And then the important part here is whenever she like does a medium ending combo or just like any ending combo, she gets energy vulnerability like dormant charge, and when you drop the SP1, it gets consumed and she gets an energy vulnerability on the opponent, up to 5 of them, and up to 500 per stack. So like that's minus 2500 energy like resistance, which is pretty dang good, man. That's a pretty like noticeable amount of energy resistance like reduction. So yeah, in situations where you want to burst on the character as fast as possible, she does need max sig, but like by herself she's still pretty good. Like she's still definitely usable, but it's just you're missing out on quite a noticeable amount of damage, man. So yeah, Viv Vision, pretty good signature ability to invest in. I think she's a pretty solid character too, so yeah, why not? Now we have Kate Bishop, whose signature ability isn't really needed in my opinion. It is a pretty nice one, but like she can work just fine without it. So basically she gets extra dialed in passives, up to like 3 extra, I think. You get like extra per signature ability like level. Well, it's like per 100, right? And these increase your like debuff durations. But the thing is with Kate Bishop, her debuff durations aren't really a problem because she can just refresh them so easily. But also you get some increased trick arrow potency. So yeah, that's pretty nice for the cool snap and all that. So it's just like extra damage there as well. And additionally, whenever you like hit the opponent's block, you can like pause the debuffs. But like I said, the debuffs are really like easy to maintain and refresh, so it's not even like the biggest deal. So you're basically just like investing for the extra damage output and just like the safety net of the debuffs, which is pretty nice. But honestly, Unawakened, she's perfectly fine, man. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. It's good to invest in, but it's like not really that needed in my opinion. And now we have Shocker, who has a pretty good signature ability. So basically, whenever the opponent would get a prowess or like they would stun him, he gets some extra vibro shock charges, which is, it's good, but it's kind of niche. So yeah, not the biggest deal, and it only needs Sig 1 as well. But the part that scales is pretty dang important. So whenever he uses an SP1 for the first time in the fight, it gets refunded up to like 100%. So you can just drop the SP1 and then either drop it immediately or just like immediately go to your SP2 and just like end the fight. So yeah, it's a pretty good signature ability, and it's pretty dang important for like nodes or like content that has a fight timer, right? Like, you know, Battlegrounds, Alliance War, things like that. It'll be pretty important to just like, you know, get extra damage and just save some time. So yeah, it's a pretty nice signature ability. It saves some ramp for sure, and I think it's a pretty like good one to invest in my opinion. Okay, the final topic is 7-star shards, because they need to be addressed in this video. So basically, whenever you buy Future Crystal, just know that you are missing out on quite the amount of 7-star shards. For like a example, every 10 feature crystals is 150,000 shards, and it gives you like 2750 7-star shards, right? Assuming if you get all dupes, right? But for a basic, 150,000 shards is 15 crystals, and that gives like, I think 4,000 and something. I think it gives like 4,125. And that's a difference of like over 1,000 shards. And that might not seem like a lot, but in 7-star shards, it is a pretty big deal. Like 1,000 shards is a pretty big deal still for like the 7-star crystals, as they're very new, right? So just keep that in mind. If you want to like just not worry about 6 stars anymore and just want to focus on the future, which is 7 stars, then basic is always the answer, right? But if you want these characters, just keep in mind, go over like what I mentioned with like the signature ability levels. Like if they don't need high sig and you don't want to just like, you know, manually get copies, then you just like get the character that you want and then stop, because you don't have to like, you know, go for the dupe or anything. Because for like endgame players, 6-star gems and 6 zones are pretty common now. So like if you can just not worry about getting the manual dupe, then I would just stop and just use a gem or something, and I just focus on the 7-star shards, because I think they're pretty important to get like right now, because you know, the pool is currently very, very good and it's very, very small. So like, if you're hunting a character in that crystal in like the 36 pool, like, you know, you're hunting Hulk or something, then I would just focus on the 7-star shards, right? If you like collecting champs though, then like by all means get all the characters, right? It's like your account, your choice. And for me personally, I, you know, as a content creator, I want to get all the characters so I can make videos on them, right? So I don't really have a choice, but if I did have a choice, I might like, you know, skip 1 or 2 characters and just like focus on 4 and then just like focus on 7-star shards. But since I want all these characters, I'm just gonna like, you know, stop until I get all of them, right? So yeah, that's just like my thoughts on you know, the whole 7-star shard situation, and yeah. And that'll be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts on the new feature characters, and let me know your thoughts on this video like in general, because I hope it really did like help you just like, you know, figure out what you want to do with your shards and all that. And yeah, that's about it for me.